Folks, and like I think almost everybody else in the world doing any type of information as relates to running, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the great shoe debate, although this isn't really going to be a debate, but we're talking about shoes like this is the Nike Vaporfly 4%, their original one. I'll give you a hint at the end. I will tell you that even though the evidence is clearly there that these shoes can help you race better, I'll never wear them in a race again because it doesn't meet one of my main criteria, but we'll get to that in the end. So let's talk a little bit about the history of what Nike did and what's going on and what these shoes may or may not do for you as it relates to your race performance. So first of all, I think everybody knows they've got this carbon fiber plate. And everybody looks and says, well, carbon fiber plates are new. They put this new plate in there. They're actually not new. Carbon fiber plates have been available in some shoes since 2003. In fact, I think in 2003, the world record was set with a shoe that had a carbon fiber plate in it. So carbon fiber plates are not very new. You hear a lot about this really new foam, and they do have a different foam, but new foams have been around for a while too. I don't know when the Adidas Boost came out, but Adidas Boost was the first shoe that really had what they called a revolutionary new foam that was going to give you a boost, hence the name. So foams aren't new, even though Nike is using a little bit different foam. Then you've got, well, there was the foam right there, and then you've got this increased stack height, which is pretty unusual in a racing shoe. They've increased the stack height. I don't know if Hoka was the first. I'm sure they weren't. I don't know when Hoka started doing it, but increased stack heights aren't very new either. What Nike really did was they found a way to blend these together in a way that hadn't been done before to make a technological advance in what's going on with shoes. Maybe the way to liken it is like this. There's no more musical notes today than there was, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, whatever, but musicians are constantly finding new ways to blend those notes together and make new music. Same type of thing here. So Nike really took existing stuff, they got it blended in some way to make it the same. And they are not alone already, and they will rapidly be even less alone. So even today, Nike's next shoe is the Alphafly. The Carbon X has been out for a while. Brooks is releasing the Hyperion. Saucony's releasing the Endorphin. Reebok for a while has had the Float Ride. I'm sure there's more. Every major shoe manufacturer is going to have something similar in the very near future. Unfortunately, they're probably all still going to be expensive. I suspect that the next advantage will be somebody will find a way to do it cheaper, and they'll start bringing those costs down a little bit. But very rapidly, every major shoe manufacturer is going to have something a little bit like the next percent. So the big question, of course, everybody wants to know is if I wear these magic shoes, will I race faster? And I say race because these shoes, you can't get a lot of mileage on them. So very few people wear them for training. They only use them in races because they want to minimize how many miles they put on them because they are an expensive shoe. So will it make you faster? My answer, of course, is, well, probably. So let's talk about, what that is. So here's some things I guess that shoes aren't going to do for you. So when I talk to somebody who's had a bad race, they never say, I wore the wrong shoes. What they usually say is, yeah, my training didn't go as well as I had hoped, and that really caught up with me in the race day. I started way too fast. I didn't do a good job with hydration, or I didn't do a good job with fueling. There's all kinds of other things that shoes are not going to fix. So can they give you an advantage in a good race? Sure, but not at the expense of all the other stuff that you have to do. That's always going to be a lot more important. Now let's talk about what faster really means. So you always hear people tossing around 4%. You're going to be 4% faster with these shoes. Well, sorry to say, you're not necessarily going to be 4% faster. First of all, the range is actually 2% to 6%. So when they have done studies on this, and there's been numerous studies now, the low end has been just under 2%, and the high end has been about 6%. It varies a lot. Why does it vary? Well, your height, your weight, your gait, the pace you're running, there's a lot of variables in there to say whether or not this shoe might help you get 2% or 6%. 4% is simply the average, and we'll kind of stick with the 4%. But it doesn't make you 2% to 6% faster. That 4% says your running economy improves by 4%, not speed per se. So, okay, my running economy improves 4%. What the hell does that mean? So here's an example. Let's say that you use 100 widgets or whatever of energy to run an 8-minute pace. If your running economy improved by 4%, you would now only need 96 widgets to maintain that same 8-minute pace, which means either you're going to be running a little bit easier at 8 minutes, or more likely what you're going to do is pick up your pace to still use your 100 widgets. That's what you've been doing in training, and your pace is going to be faster than 8. How much? I don't know. I'm sure there's some math that can be figured out to do that, but you can't just take your time and say, I'm going to be 4% faster. It's your running economy that improves, and that economy should allow you to be faster. The last thing that I'll talk about with the shoes is my biggest criteria for shoes is, your shoe, you should be one with your shoe. Your shoe should feel like it was made for you. It fits like a glove. And I mentioned earlier that I've got these. I think I've got 20 miles on them. They're a size 13. Send me your address and postage. You can have them because they sit in my closet right now. The reason I don't is twofold. One is that because this one has a pretty high stack height, or a heel drop rather, relative to some of the other shoes, I've got arthritis in my toe. It pushes on that toe. So I probably couldn't wear them for much more than 3 or 4 miles before my toe gets sore. But more importantly, I don't like them. They might make me a little bit faster, but I don't feel like I'm running well in them. It just feels funny to me. Now, I did recently try the Next Percent, the shoe that came after the 4%. It's got a little bit of a lower heel drop. It's 8 millimeters. I typically run in about a 4. So being closer, I'm finding that doesn't bother my toe. And I do find that shoe is comfortable. I have worn them in a race. I'm going to try them in another race and see what I think. And as long as I feel good in that shoe, I'll use it. But I still think your number one criteria in any shoe that you're going to wear in training, race, whatever, is the shoe's got to feel good. And if the shoe doesn't feel good, then any benefit that shoe purports to have just isn't worth it.